Hey, I'm Jake. In this video, we're going to continue our series where we make a website from scratch. If you haven't watched the last video, we made a static website that looks just like this. Well, you probably didn't make it like this if you didn't have this image, but it's on GitHub if you want to go grab it. But we made a website that looks just like this, just using static HTML. If you don't want to follow along from the last video, that's totally fine. You can get all the code for this video down in the description below at the GitHub link. So, what are we going to do in this video? In this video, we're going to convert our website from a static page, which you can tell this is static because if you look at the HTML bar, it says index.html and it's just the file path to this file. Now, this is fine, but if I click something like about, well, it doesn't do anything because it doesn't have a page to go to. But if I click register, there's no register. There's no c/register file. So we can't do that. Now, you could technically do that by having it point to specific files on your computer, but that's not going to work if you want to make it so other people can use it. So let's run this on Flask so that eventually anybody can use it. Cool. Let's do it. All right, so this is the code from last week. And this is just our index.html file. And this is basically what we have. We have our profile picture here, and we have our style.css. Now, what we want to do now is run this on Flask. So I'm going to close this and go over to our new video2 file or folder. And you can see we have a different structure. So if you'll see here, we just had everything in the root of this folder, which means just if you go into the folder, it's the first thing you see is the root. But now we have different folders. So we have a static folder and we have a templates folder. And then finally we have an app.py. Now, if we go to these templates folder, we can see now we have an index.html file. And if we go to it, it looks almost the exact same as our previous one. It's actually a little bit different, this line mainly, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Next, we have a register.html file, which doesn't have anything in it, but we'll copy and paste some code into here soon. And finally, we have a static and then styles folders. So a static folder with a styles folder underneath of it. And then we have our style.css put within there. Nothing has changed for this style.css. Finally, we have our app.py. So again, we're using Python to run a Flask server. If you want to run a Node server using Node.js, which is extremely popular out in the wild, let me know. I have a lot of experience with Node, so if you want another tutorial series or just a video or something like that on that, drop a comment down below, and I'd be happy to do that. We can even do it on React if you want. So let me know. All right, so if you are following along, you're going to want to open up your terminal. And you're going to want to make sure that you have Flask installed. So all you need to do is do Python, whatever your version of Python is. Mine is Python 3. And then you're going to do -m pip install Flask. And then we go ahead and wait for this to finish. This actually, I'm surprised this is taking so long, but I already have Flask installed. So it was probably just doing some checks. And there we go. You can see that it is done. Excellent. So now that we have Flask installed, let's actually write some Python code to start our Flask server. So to start off, we're going to do from Flask import Flask. So from the Flask package, we are going to import the Flask class. Then we're going to do app equals Flask __ name. __ name is basically going to be main here. That's why if you ever do an if check like this, __ name equals main, can spell, that's what you're going to see. So this is basically a very common way to do things in Python, because what you're doing here is you're going to have a bunch of logic that's going to set things up before this, and then this is actually what's going to fire things off, which is what we're going to do here. So here we're going to do app.run and then debug equals true. The reason we want to do debug equals true is so that we can ensure that when we run our Flask server, it's going to be in a debug mode. So we can kind of access things more easily. It's going to be a lot easier to debug things with, hence debug. All right, next we're going to do def home close parentheses, just a function. And here we're just going to return making an awesome website. Cool. Now, if you haven't watched my video on decorators, which is linked right up here, I would highly recommend you do so because it is honestly one of my favorite things about Python. So maybe consider giving it a watch because again, it's really, really cool. But one thing we're going to do here is use a Flask decorator. And in order to do that, we're going to do @app.route and then a string with a /. Now, the / means the root, basically a website without anything after the com or the org or net or whatever. So it's like Instagram.com. That is the root, the main page of the website. So right now, this will work. It's not actually going to run our past website, but it will run a server. So let's go ahead and in our terminal, let's clear what we have here. Then we're going to do Flask run and then --debug. To be honest, I'm not 100% certain if you do the --debug, but I know it will enable something called Watchdog, which will make it so that anytime you update any of your files, it'll restart the server really quickly, which is so handy when you're working on stuff. So let's go ahead and run this. And you can see that debug mode is on. This is a development server. Don't use this when you're actually hosting real people. And it is running on this port. You can press Control-C to quit. And restarting with Watchdog Windows API, debugger's active, debugger pin, blah, blah, blah. So we can go ahead and control-click this, and it will open it up in your browser. And we can go and see this here. And here we go. We have making an awesome website. But you can see this is no longer referencing a path anymore. And if we go, just to kind of show you what Watchdog does, if we go and just change this to really awesome website, you can see when I saved this file, it said detecting change and then restarting Watchdog, blah, blah, blah. And if we go back and we refresh, we can see that it now has really awesome. But why that's really awesome is because we didn't have to go and change stuff in the console. It just did it for us. If you do run into an error, you will see an error down below. So keep an eye out still on your console because sometimes if you make an update and it results in an error and then you go back and refresh your website, you'll say like, why am I not seeing my change? It's because you have an error, so it wasn't able to restart the server. It's just keeping the past version. So keep that in mind. All right, now let's render our template, which we have our templates folder. So let's do our index.html, the thing we really want to reference. So what we're going to do is in our first line, we're going to do comma render template. And this is another thing that Flask provides. All we're going to do is replace this, making a really awesome website, with render template and then a string, which is basically a path to the file we want to render, which is just index.html, as though we are already within the templates folder. So if we had more folders within templates, like templates root or templates main, and we had index within that, then we would just do main/index.html. Now, you can see we have saved this. I haven't done anything else. I haven't touched the console. But if we go back and we refresh, we have our website. But you'll notice we don't have our profile picture. That's actually because we don't have the profile picture here at all. But let's go to the index.html file to figure out how we can do that. So within our index.html file, you might notice, as I kind of alluded to earlier, that this is very different. We now have, rather than just having style.css like we had in our first version, we now have this weird URL for static file name. What is all this garbage? This is something that's called Jinja, spelled Jinja, like ninja, but with J's. I don't know why. Every programmers like to make like ninja-y things, right? Like cool names for stuff, and then just change it a bit. But basically what this allows for is it allows you to, again, put variables and things like that within your HTML. So anytime you want to do something like that, you are going to do these open squiggle braces, And you're going to do 2 of them, and then you're going to do another 2, and then that's basically your block. Whatever you put in here is going to be considered or computed by Jinja. Now, what we're going to do here specifically is URL4, which is a function that the rendering engine allows for, and you can find more of these just online. But this one is going to try and find a URL for a file within the static directory, which is the static one here, and we're searching for the file name, which equals styles/style.css. And if you look at our static here, we have static styles style.css, which is basically what this is, static styles style.css. Now, static is referenced here because it is within the root. Now, that is why our CSS works. But if we go down and we look at our profile image, we can see that, well, this is why it's not working. So if we want to reference this profile image, all we have to do, well, first off, we're going to need it. So let's copy it, and let's go ahead and paste it within our static folder. Ta-da! So you can see it's within static. And then we're going to copy this, and then we're going to replace this. And instead of styles, we're just going to keep it like this, and we're going to do profile.jpg. Perfect. Now, you can see that it has updated, and if we go back and we refresh, we now have our profile picture. Yay! Awesome. So far, we've gone over how to host a website with Flask, because this is now running on a server. It's a development server on our own computer, but it's still a server. If we click home, it actually goes home. You can see that it does refresh the browser and it comes back to this page. If you click about, nothing happens still. And if you click register, we get a different type of error, because you can see now it actually is going to whatever our URL is. This is basically stands for your local computer, is what 127.0.0.1 stands for. Or localhost, you might see. And then 5000, which is the port we're hitting, and then /register. But we don't have anything, because if you look at our server, we don't actually register anything for that. Register. So if we go back, let's go ahead and look at our code again, specifically for app.py. So the reason register isn't working is because we don't have a route for it. So what we can do is we can go ahead and copy this and do register, and then make this register. Then finally, we change this to register, lots of registers, and we can go ahead and see now that this is going to register, I'm saying register a lot, that this is going to link to our register.html. But unfortunately, we don't have anything in that file right now. So let's just go ahead and just kind of show, hi, just to show you that before I paste in some code. So if we refresh here, we can see nothing is here. If we click register, we go back and we now get hi. Pretty simple. So we can see that our routing to the register HTML fit page is now working. One other thing that we can add here, because we're going to actually need to do it, is something called methods. And what methods allow you to do for a route is you can specify how you can call a specific route. So here we can do methods equals, and then it's a list of potential methods. Now these methods are actually defined within like HTML spec or like HTTP spec, I guess technically. And these are like get, post. There's also like delete, update. I think maybe list is one. I don't know. What are some other ones that options maybe? I think there's a lot of them. There's not too many of them, but there's a number of them. What's your favorite HTTP method? Comment down below. So in this example, we're going to do get and post, because eventually we're going to allow a user to post to this register path. I might say path or route interchangeably here. They kind of mean the same thing. Basically, a path is the same thing as what this is here. Awesome. So let's go and actually set something within our register so that we can kind of jump around. So I'm going to paste all this in here, and then we're going to go over it real quickly. So here we're changing the title to register. We are still linking to the exact same CSS sheet, just as like we were doing within index.html. We still have the exact same nav bar as we had before. And then the only real thing that's different from our index.html is now we have within our main body of our outside of the nav bar, we have this form which allows you to register something using a post request. So we'll get further into that in the next video, but here we have a label for username, and username is the name and the ID of this input. And I'll show you what all this looks like in a second. Then we have some line breaks, and then we have a label for a password, which is, again, this here. And this has the type of password, which means when you type it, you can't see what it is. Pretty fancy. I should also say that this has the type of text. There are a number of different types of type. And then finally, we have an input of type submit, and it has the value of register. This is kind of just like a button. You could also do this with a button, but this is basically going to look like a button. Awesome. So if we go back to our HTML page, or I guess I should say our server, and we reload and we go back to our home, and now we click register. We now come to a registration page. And here we could type in a username like Jake, and then a password like cool. And you can see that here the cool is not visible because you can't actually see it. If you copy and paste it, it's not going to work because you shouldn't be able to copy paste passwords that are invisible. Let me just double check here. Yep, doesn't work. Then if we click register, it is now going to send a post request to our server. So if we click register, we can see nothing seems to have really happened. But what actually happened, if we go back to our page here, we can see that it got a post request for register. Now, what's actually important here is that when that happened, we just return our template. We return the page again, and that's it. We're done. And now if we are on our register page and we click home, ta-da, we go back home. We can go between our tabs actually, or our nav bar actually works. We can do a bunch of cool stuff here, and we're going to continue to add to it. In the next video, we are going to continue to build onto this website and actually make registration do something. So we're going to go over how to actually handle that post request and make it go to a different page. Eventually, we will handle things like creating a database. We're going to actually handle registrations and stored passwords in a proper way. We're going to allow your user to log in and go to a specific dashboard that you can load information that only they have access to. And we're also going to show you how to host this online. If anybody has any great free online options that anybody knows of, please drop them down as a comment down below, because I've been hunting for free alternatives. Heroku used to be my go-to, but Heroku is no longer free. They don't have a good free tier anymore. There are some ways we can host the database for free online, but hosting the actual Python server, haven't found a free way to do it yet. But most it would cost you is like $5 a month. I mean, it could cost you a lot of money, but the least I guess it could cost you so far that I know of is $5 a month. Which honestly, if you're really getting into creating things like projects and stuff like that, having a small server for $5 a month, if it's within your budget, is honestly a great thing to do, because then you can kind of point people to it. Sweet. So that is all for this video. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.